English has one word for love. Greek has four, each one carrying its own weight and its own job to do. That single flattened word has been quietly hiding the truth every time you open your Bible and read a verse about love. When Jesus asks Peter, "Do you love me?" 3 times in a row on a quiet beach in John 21, you probably assume he's just repeating himself for effect, maybe to make sure Peter really means it. He's not. He's switching between 2 completely different Greek words, and neither one means quite what you think. That one switch changes what the whole conversation actually means. By the end of this video, you'll never read that page the same way again. So here's the question worth asking first. Why does Jesus ask Peter the exact same question 3 times in John 21? And why does Peter's answer never quite line up with it? Most people read this as an awkward do-over, like Jesus is just making a point twice more for good measure. But the original Greek text tells a very different story. Jesus and Peter are speaking 2 different languages of love in this exact scene, and neither man backs down easily. Today we're walking through this passage line by line, in plain English. No seminary jargon, no Greek homework required. Just the plain meaning of the text, and why it still matters for your life right now. This scene comes from John chapter 21, the final chapter of the Gospel of John. John wrote this Gospel near the end of his own life, likely around 90 AD, for a community of early Christians who needed solid proof that Jesus really was God's Son. Many scholars believe he wrote it from the city of Ephesus, to a network of churches facing doubt, persecution, and false teaching from nearly every direction imaginable at the time. This particular chapter happens after the resurrection. Jesus has already appeared to the disciples twice by this point. Now he shows up a 3rd time, on a beach at dawn, over a fire-cooked breakfast, with the one disciple who has the most explaining left to do. A few weeks earlier, Peter swore he would never abandon Jesus, no matter what happened. Then he denied even knowing him, 3 separate times in a single night, right when Jesus needed him most. Peter has carried that shame in silence ever since. This quiet beach conversation is exactly where Jesus decides to deal with it, face to face. Picture the whole scene for a second before we dig into the actual words being spoken. A charcoal fire crackling low on the sand at sunrise, fresh grilled fish and warm bread waiting nearby. 7 exhausted fishermen who fished the entire night and came up with absolutely nothing to show for it. Jesus personally cooks breakfast for the same men who scattered the moment he needed them most. After they finish eating, Jesus turns straight to Simon Peter and asks one pointed question. "Simon, son of John, do you agape me more than these?" Peter answers quickly, "Yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you." Jesus responds, "Feed my lambs." Here's what those 2 Greek words actually mean, stripped of all the jargon. Agape is deep, unconditional, sacrificial love, the kind the Bible uses to describe how God treats broken, undeserving people. It's the kind of love that stays even when staying costs you everything you have, with nothing guaranteed back in return. Phileo is warm, loyal, brotherly love, the steady bond between close friends who trust each other completely through good seasons and bad ones. Both are real love in Scripture. They're simply not the same size or weight. Jesus is asking for agape. Peter offers phileo instead, and nothing more. On the surface, this looks like a simple back-and-forth exchange. Underneath, it's a broken man being painfully honest about his own limits. Jesus asks Peter again. Same question, same exact word. "Simon, son of John, do you agape me?" Peter gives the identical answer he gave before. "Yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you." Jesus responds, "Take care of my sheep." Then comes the 3rd question, and this is the part almost every reader completely misses. Jesus changes his own word this time. He asks instead, "Simon, son of John, do you phileo me?" He drops down to meet Peter's word directly. Peter gets hurt by this. The text says he's grieved that Jesus asked him a 3rd time in a row. But look closer at the real reason why. He's not grieved by the simple repetition itself. He's grieved because Jesus finally asked the one question Peter could actually answer with total honesty, and that exposes exactly how far short Peter feels he has fallen. Peter answers, "Lord, you know absolutely everything. You know that I phileo you." Jesus says, "Feed my sheep," one final time. 3 questions asked, 3 denials undone one at a time in front of the same fire. Jesus isn't scolding Peter here at all. He's rebuilding him piece by piece, using the exact language Peter can actually live inside honestly. Here's a question worth pausing on. Why did English collapse 4 distinct Greek words down into one single word? The short answer is history and convenience. Old English had a broad word, lufu, that covered nearly every kind of affection people felt. When early translators like William Tyndale built the first English Bibles, working under real threat of persecution, they mostly reached for that one flexible word, love, again and again throughout the text. It read smoothly on the page. It sounded natural to English ears, but it quietly erased distinctions the original readers would have caught instantly. A first-century reader hearing agape spoken instead of phileo felt that difference immediately and instinctively, the same way you'd notice a friend saying like instead of love when they text you back today. English readers lost that built-in signal completely, somewhere along the way, and most of us never even knew it was missing until right now. Step back now, because this gets bigger than one conversation on a beach. English flattens 4 separate Greek words into a single overworked one. Eros is romantic, passionate love between partners, the kind wrapped up in attraction and desire. You won't find that exact word directly inside the New Testament, but you'll find its shadow all through the poetry of Song of Songs. Storge is quiet family affection, the natural, almost automatic bond between parents and their own children. Phileo is friendship, loyalty, and warmth shared between equals who trust each other. Agape is the largest and heaviest one of the 4, the love that gives fully and freely without ever needing anything back in return from the other person. In English, saying I love pizza and I love my kids uses the exact same word for both. Greek would never make that careless mistake. Lose that distinction, and you lose real weight behind some of the Bible's biggest claims about God himself. 1 John chapter 4 says plainly that God is agape, not fondness, and not some passing preference, but total, sacrificial, unconditional commitment, every single time, without exception. John chapter 3 verse 16 says God so agaped the world that he gave his only son. That's not casual affection for a planet spinning in space. That's the exact kind of love that willingly sends a son to die for people who don't deserve it. Here's the practical part. The piece you can actually use this week. You probably already show phileo love pretty easily, most days without even trying much at all. You're loyal to your close friends and you show up for people who reliably show up for you first. Agape is the far harder one to practice consistently, day after day. Agape means showing up for someone who can never possibly pay you back for it. It means staying patient with a difficult coworker who never says thank you, a distant parent who never quite apologizes, or a friend who keeps letting you down anyway. Picture the coworker who takes credit for your work in a meeting. Phileo says cut them off completely and move on with your life. Agape says keep showing up with integrity, even when nobody else is watching or keeping score. That's the harder, costlier love, and it's the specific love the Bible keeps pointing you toward. Again and again, chapter after chapter. People ask a common question here. Did Jesus settle for less when he switched down to Peter's word phileo? It looks that way at first glance, almost like a compromise. But read the exchange again, slowly this time. Jesus meets Peter exactly where Peter honestly is, not where Peter wishes he could be. Peter simply cannot claim agape yet, not honestly, not after failing in the worst possible way, just days earlier, in front of a servant girl by another fire. So Jesus doesn't demand a love Peter can't truthfully offer him right now on the spot, under pressure. He accepts phileo as it is, and he still hands Peter the job anyway. Feed my sheep, no conditions attached. Another honest question people ask a lot, is this Greek distinction airtight everywhere across the New Testament? Honestly, no, it isn't. John himself uses agape and phileo interchangeably in a few other spots within this very same gospel. So this isn't some rigid rule you can slap onto every single verse you find. But right here inside this exact exchange on the beach, most careful scholars agree the specific word choice is doing real intentional work. It fits the emotional shape of this moment far too well to be a simple accident. So here's exactly where we land after all of this. English gives you just one flat word for love. Greek gave its first readers 4, and the Bible clearly uses that full range on purpose throughout its pages. Jesus asked Peter for agape, the biggest kind of love there is. Peter could only honestly offer phileo, and nothing more than that. Jesus took it anyway, without hesitation, and used that honest answer to rebuild a broken man into the very rock his church would stand on for centuries. That's the real answer to the question we opened this video with. Jesus wasn't repeating himself out of frustration on that beach. He was meeting Peter exactly where Peter could actually stand, and building carefully from there, one honest answer at a time. Here's the one thought worth carrying with you long after this video ends and the screen goes dark. You don't need perfect, flawless love to be useful to God or to anyone else around you. You need honest love, offered without pretending to be further along than you actually are. Bring exactly what you actually have to give right now, today, not the polished version you think you're supposed to have. Go read all of John 21 for yourself sometime this week. Read the whole chapter slowly, not just this one small piece of it we covered today. Which one is harder for you personally? Loving someone with full agape, or actually letting someone love you that same honest way? Drop your honest answer down in the comments below this video, and subscribe for next week when we open up a passage almost everybody quietly skips right past.